Once so proudly we hailed, and the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the path.
Good evening, everybody. Welcome to the Freedom Network. Here we are once again, live, right here, ready to talk politics with you. There's a lot going on. Tim or Gary at gmail.com is what gets you in on the email side of life. And why am I going dark here? Well, I'll have to watch that. Then what? Then we'll be totally disorganized. You think we're disorganized now? Wait and see if we lose this all this info. Tim or Gary, excuse me, at gmail.com, 508-266-0990. Get you right on the phone. Any topics you want to talk about, we're game. You know, we're into it. We want to let you always talk local. Anything local always is welcome, no matter what we're doing. And, you know, obviously, whatever's on your mind can certainly be on the air. Don't worry about the topic we may be on, but certainly pick up the phone, give me a call, or send me an email. We can get it out there. We're going to talk about guns tonight, and also the context, I think, is very important and often lost in this entire gun debate, school shootings, terrible things that are happening. I think the context gets put, pardon me, way out in the left field. And we don't really look at maybe what the root causes are. Now, you know, I want to have a real conversation, right? So all opinions are welcome. As I always say, this is the Freedom Network. Don't expect that opinions don't get challenged, but please expect that you can voice any that you do so choose. I know that there's a few students out there that are watching that had contacted me that didn't really want to come on. It's not that scary to sit right here. It's really not. But yeah, I guess you could sit over there if you were a little afraid of sitting over here. But anyway, get them out there. You know, it's really, really, really important that you do feel free to comment on this stuff and that we do have a little bit of dialogue about it. So we'll have a conversation about guns. And we really do need, though, to do that, we got to back up a little bit. If we're going to have the conversation about the guns, I think that what becomes important is some kind of context. That's a word that I've been using a lot in recent weeks, and anytime we talk about guns, because to be quite honest with you, when we don't put the context in, when we allow the context to become as much as far as importance, when we allow it to become secondary, what we really do is a disservice to the issue. So if your goal is to stop school shootings, what is the root cause of that? And that's how you're going to fix the problem. That's the only way that you're going to fix the problem. So I was looking around and got some stuff from science.com, which is interesting enough. They have some great political stuff on there, and also many of the other wonderful places that you can find information on the internet to try to get some kind of talking points that might help people to understand why so many other people are so opposed to messing around with guns, you know, and the right to bear arms. So, I mean, you know, a well-regulated militia is what it says, being necessary to the security of a free state. Now, you have to also understand all the context within this. Just to even read this and understand it, you have to get into their heads a little bit. The right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. Now, my favorite of our historical figures is James Madison. I know well that all are flawed from the very beginning until right now. There is flaw in our government. But to be quite honest with you, these folks had a clue as to what they wanted and what they were trying to do. And James Madison originally proposed a Second Amendment shortly after the Constitution was, you know, you have to understand, I guess, the context. What they were really looking for were votes, okay? Don't ever, ever forget that we didn't have a Constitution in 1776. as we would know it today. We didn't have enough people or states to sign onto it. The anti-federalists are the people that really were stopping the whole process from happening. And the reason that they were is because they didn't feel comfortable with a strong central government. They felt that in time it would grow, become so powerful that it would just take over the lives of the everyday people. It's funny how that kind of happened, isn't it? And I used to think I was a federalist in the terms of the old days. And if I was around back then, I would have been with Madison. I would have been with Washington and Jefferson and these folks. But the more and more I read the Federalist Papers and the Anti-Federalist Papers, I realize that if you have that libertarian streak in you, you are going to gravitate a little bit to those Anti-Federalist Papers because some of their concerns, while at the time, again, context, may have seemed, whoa, well, that would never happen because we have the Constitution and all this kind of stuff. But no, they say we needed even more safeguards. So I was reading through those who supported states having more power. And those are your they were anti-federalists, right? That's who they were. So having just used guns and other arms to ward off the English, the amendment was originally created to give citizens the opportunity to fight back against a tyrannical federal government. So it was interesting as I pulled things out of this. And so, you know, they brought some good context to this. Since its ratification, Americans have been arguing, right, over the amendment's meaning and its interpretation. Now, I stop there before I continue on, and I will tell you that you don't need to interpret this. There is no need. 90% of everything that is in the Constitution, their opinions as to what it meant and why are in the Federalist Papers or the Anti-Federalist Papers. It's all right there. So when people say, well, you know, you have to interpret this, and what would they have meant? And look, we've talked till we're blue in the face about the fact that the puckle gun was invented years, decades before the Second Amendment was even written. Long before 1776. This was a revolving gun that they sold very few of because it was very expensive. And to be honest with you, it was one of those things where it was like, wow, they can do that? I mean, this was a high-tech invention where you could fire multiple rounds, multiple muskets without reloading because it was a cylinder with a crank and a mechanism that would fire. So you'd load all the cylinders, and then you could crank this sucker and fire them all. And about the time it would take you to fire maybe 2 or 3, you could fire 8, 10, or 12. The other thing I talk about when they say they couldn't have ever envisioned a rifle like an AR-15. And, you know, this is my go-to question back at people that say that. What do you think cars are going to be like in 100 years, 50 years, 30 years, 200 years? I know you have an opinion on that. And I know that your opinion is going to be wildly extravagant, probably more than what reality would be. What do you think homes are going to look like? What do you think boats are going to look like? What do you think televisions are going to be like? Can you envision things in the future? Because I can envision things in the future, and I'm sure you can envision all of these things in the future. To say that the government, when formed, couldn't ever imagine anything but a musket, single shot, mind you, is just wrong. First of all, there were multi-shot muskets at the time, but second of all, and more important, I'm sure that they had opinions on everything, just like you do. So if I said to you right now, what do you think guns will be like in 100 years? You would have an opinion on that. Maybe you're going to tell me it's going to be an electrical impulse. I don't know what you're going to tell me because it's your opinion. But anyway, what's going to happen is you're going to form this opinion, and that's going to give you what you think it could be in the future, right? You're all doing it right now. What are guns going to be like in 317 years? What are they going to be like? You have an opinion. Don't think that they didn't have an opinion either. So the article goes on. I won't read the entire article to you. Of course, I could get a little bit boring. They argue that a well-regulated militia clause clearly means the right to bear arms should only be given to organized groups. Those of the opposite viewpoint believe the amendment gives every citizen the right to own arms. why are we? This is frustrating. Hang on, I'm going to get right to the call in a second. But why are we arguing over what they meant when they clearly said what they meant? Now, I'll tell you, I'll get some tickets to some movies or something like I had a couple of years ago. I got to find that connection again, and I'd give them away. But somebody said that the U.S. Constitution should never be construed as to disallow, I think was the word he used, citizens of the United States to own arms. It was said by someone that helped write it, but that's okay. Hang on, let me jump on the phone here. If I hit this button, and then I got to hit this button. I think I might have done that right. Good evening, you're on the Freedom Network. How are you?
Hello, Gary. Excellent show tonight.
Hey, what do you say? How you been?
Good. I've been hanging in there fighting the flu, but I'm hanging in.
All right.
And again, I just want to thank you for everything you do and the excellent staff there at NCTV.
Oh, they're great.
And you've really on a good topic tonight. And I think there's a lot of things we need to discuss. And I think if you look at the societal issues of the United States, I mean, why weren't there these major type of shootings in the 50s and the 60s, in the early 70s, and why all of a sudden is now are these things happening?
Mm-hmm.
My contention is that there was a decimation of the mental health system in this country over the last 20 to 30 years, and as it stands now, right now, there are only 14 psychiatric beds available to every 100,000 patients, which is a disgrace.
Wow.
In the 60s and 70s, I attended some public hearings because they closed so many of the state hospitals here in Massachusetts. And at those meetings, we were told that the warehousing of people were wrong, and that all these things were no good, and that the new method was that people were going to take their medications, and we were going to have more psychiatric beds in regular hospitals that the state and federal government was going to help pay for.
Sure.
And then and also community residents for mental health. But a lot of these things never really took place. And so I think that's part of the picture. But down in the reference to Parkland situation, it almost looks like it was a perfect storm of government failure. You've had the FBI that was notified by several people. You had, I think, the Broward County Sheriff's Department responded to that individual 39 times. So then, like, you get back to gun control. Here, the government that was supposedly, allegedly, to protect people failed in their attempts. So, I mean, that's a prime thing right there, whether, it's a fallacy that government is going to be there to protect you.
Well, I don't. I think that our safety protocols in the United States, our police officers are a reactionary force for the most part,
Right.
and that's their intent. It's not that they're doing anything they really shouldn't be in that context, I guess. But you can go back further, man. I mean, you go back further. Why didn't kids go and routinely shoot up schools when they had muskets?
That's
Or
right.
I'll tell you something else. They never banned cannons. You could own a cannon in 1776. I can't find anywhere where you couldn't own one. They didn't aim them at schools and whatnot. I did find where they did blow up a school way back. I forget the date. I'd have to look it up. Things have happened, but not like they're happening now. And I'm going to absolutely positively agree with you that what we sit on the brink of is a massive mental health issue. But I think that, without going to that root cause, we're not going to ever stop this. It's just not going to stop by just banning things.
No, I mean, I agree. There's a father that's been speaking out of one of the his daughter was killed in the shooting.
Yeah.
And he brings up a lot of good points. He says if you bring up gun control, you're going to get polarization. We all have to work together as Americans, not the Democratic Party, not the Republican Party,
Sure.
not the Independent Party, and come up with deterrents and solutions. When you think of it, right,
Yeah.
all the politicians are protected by guns. All the courts are protected by guns. All government installations are protected by guns. The airports are protected by guns.
Yep.
They has to be some comprehensive plans and adjustments made for the overall security of schools, because like this father keeps saying, I want to be the last father to say that my child was killed in a school shooting, which is an excellent point.
Yeah, it is a sad situation. It really and truly is, and it's got to be addressed. I think the issue is how we go about addressing it, and do we use knee-jerk reactions or do we use common sense? So, but how long have you had the flu? Are you almost over it now?
Yeah, well, they say people over age 55, it takes a good 3 to 4 weeks
All right.
to fully get rid of it.
And what week are you in now?
Yeah, so I'm in the third week, so hopefully I'm coming around it,
All right, man, you're on the mend. Hey, I want to thank you for calling in.
Okay, I just want to say one
Yeah,
other thing.
go ahead.
I just want to say one other thing, Gary,
Yeah.
about relative to, you bring up the Constitution and the threat on constitutional rights. I mean, when you think about it, there are 3,600 abortions in this country a day. I mean, there's nobody talking about the impacting the constitutional rights of Roe versus Wade. So, I mean, we also we have to tread carefully on the attack on Second Amendment rights. And on that note, I'll leave you, and again, thank you and the entire staff at NCTV.
All right, bud. Thank you very much for being out there. Good caller. We hear from him frequently. Haven't heard from him in a while, though. Did I hang that up? All right. I think I was just calling somebody, but that's all right. I think I'm good. All right. He brings up a lot of good points. What do you think about them? I think I'm getting his flu. I've been feeling it now for 2 days, again, with the cold that wants to come that I've been telling you. I have been saying I don't have a cold. And it's been working wonders, to be quite honest with you. Absolutely working wonders. So, the Supreme Court's been involved with the gun control debate. It's regularly debated everywhere. It says here, yet despite an ongoing public battle over gun ownership rights, until recent years, the Supreme Court had said very little on the issue. Well, because there's really not much to say on the issue. Let me just find that. I got so many tabs open right now. You would be impressed. You know how technologically advanced I am. But as part of the ruling, the court said that the right of each individual to bear arms was not granted under the Constitution. 10 years later, the court affirmed the ruling in Presser versus Illinois, when it said that the Second Amendment only limited the federal government from prohibiting gun ownership, not the states. Now, we've argued and talked about that all the time. How does a state have any right to make any gun law at all? They can't make laws that prevent you from exercising other rights, or they can't make laws that infringe on the rights that are guaranteed and protected by the Constitution. Remember, first of all, the Constitution is not for you as a rule book, it's for the government as a rule book. Secondly, and even more importantly, the Constitution doesn't grant anything, it protects. The rights that you have are your rights. They're your rights. Your right to be free, your right to live, to have freedom to say what you want, to be judged by your peers, all that kind of stuff that comes into it, that more social stuff that comes into the Bill of Rights and other amendments, is absolutely positively, that's where the meat and potatoes is. Chris Almeida's show, remember the meat and potatoes show? We've had him here. We got to have him back. He's always a good guest. All three of the cases heard before 1900 cemented the court's opinion that the Bill of Rights, and specifically the Second Amendment, does not prohibit the states from setting their own rules on gun ownership. I would really disagree with them. I'd really disagree with them on that, because the state can't say there's no more freedom of press. The state can't say we're not going to have due process or due cause. Trump may say that. We'll get to that later. But the states can't say that. The states cannot say that this is a sanctuary city and illegals are welcome here, because the federal government controls those laws constitutionally. Now, the federal government has made a gabillion laws that it should never have made, that I would also argue are completely illegal and should be left to the states. We're kind of ass backwards here, if you want my honest opinion, where we have states making laws that they shouldn't be making, and we have the federal government making laws that they shouldn't be making because the other entity should be making it. I think it's just interesting. It would be about 70 years before the court took up the issue again. District of Columbia versus Heller, 2008. The case centered on Dick Heller, a licensed special police officer in Washington, D.C., who challenged the nation's capital's handgun ban. For the first time, the Supreme Court ruled that despite state laws, individuals who were not part of a state militia did have the right to bear arms. As part of its ruling, the court wrote, and I'll quote, "The Second Amendment protects an individual right to possess a firearm unconnected with the service in a militia, and to use that arm for traditionally lawful purposes such as self-defense, even within the home." So now they start to come back around on it, right? They go, don't forget, the Supreme Court are people just like you and me, all right? That's all they are. And what they do is they try to make sure that things are constitutional. They don't always get it right. Sometimes they do. So when we love their ruling, we go, yeah, the Supreme Court rules, it's great. When we hate it, we say, oh, they're just a bunch of know-nothings, right? In 2016, the Supreme Court ruled on the right to bear arms. And this was, why did I not copy all of that information? It was Massachusetts, Catano, I think it was, I'm remembering back. This case involved a woman who was in possession of a stun gun for self-defense against an abusive ex-boyfriend. Because stun guns were illegal under Mass law, the woman was arrested and convicted of possessing the weapon. The case made its way to the Supreme Court, which ruled that stun guns and indeed all instruments that constitute bearable arms are protected under the Second Amendment. Again, why does the Second Amendment exist? It doesn't exist so you can go hunting. It doesn't exist so you can do target practice. It exists primarily, as Madison said, so that you can defend yourself against the government. You can defend the government against the militia. They were also worried that generals would go to Washington and take over. All right? They were also worried about that. And they wanted you to be able to defend the constitutionality of America. If James Madison were alive today, okay, he would scratch his head like this and he'd say, so who's coming to Washington with me and where do we get the guns? Because this government's taken over. They would go to Washington and they would take this sucker back and they would look at us and say, what the hell have you been doing all this time? It's really, really interesting when you want to look at the realities of guns and what their impact is on society. There is an impact on society. It's been said many times that freedom isn't always A, it's not always pretty, B, it's not a guarantee of anything, and it can be dangerous. It's kind of a double-sided coin when we get down to that level of it. So as long as we have some context and people don't say, well, they couldn't envision this, and I want to tell you something else. The militia, so you know, is not, I repeat, your National Guard. That is not a militia. The Anti-Federalists did not want a standing army at all, which is where this all comes into context. I keep saying the word context, but it just is so needed. This is where it all comes in, all right? This is where it all gets brought to the reality of the situation. And I think without understanding why we have the right, it's very easy to say, is it really that important? You can also say that other nations don't have as many guns or any guns and look at how much safer they are. I would argue their freedom, and some may seem and appear free. I will say I don't feel free in America. I'm sorry, but I don't. The government's way too big, but I do think that I feel freer than I would in many other places. I'm not looking to pay any more of my money to the government. And that's what you get in most of these socialist type of places. We pay too much as it is. You know, I got an article. I just don't know that I'll have time for it, but maybe we can get to it. You know, protest is a big part of America. Okay, everybody? So, you know, we don't always have to agree with people to support them protesting, all right? And if we do agree, we're free to join them. If we don't, we're free to protest in the other direction. I'll go over a letter. I got a letter that the Uxbridge schools sent out, and we can think about that. I want to get your thoughts on that. I would say let me get the letter, and then I'll give you my 2 cents to it. Where am I going? Here I am. This is a little funny on my end, the way that this came in. I can just about get this whole thing on the screen here. Dear parents, families, and extended Uxbridge communities. Over the past 2 weeks, our school and our student body have been managing a number of emotions following the tragedy in Florida. Consequently, some students reached out to school administration, noting their intention to organize and participate in the National School Walkout on March 14th at 10 a.m. As a school, we bear the collective responsibility of helping the students understand the balance between effective speech, assembly, and protest, and what can be seen as civil disobedience or a disruption. The law is fairly clear on the subject, as outlined in the Supreme Court landmark Tinker v. Des Moines decision. In that decision, the court held that first, students have a constitutional right to freedom of speech while at school, on school grounds, and second, that this freedom of speech right must be balanced against maintaining orderliness in the school environment. Employing these standards, the court baseline provides schools with the latitude to regulate freedom of speech if it will likely result in substantial disruption of the educational process. Material interference with school activities or invasion of the rights of others, the court famously states that students do not shed their constitutional rights at the schoolhouse gate. So, in a meeting with some student leaders, it has become clear that the goal of the Uxbridge Plan participation on March 14th is based on two singular goals and no ulterior motives. One, coming together as a community that will show its collective vigilance and support of each other, and two, honoring the memory of the students that perished in the Parkland tragedy. We intend to have banners that students will sign with a message to the effect of UHS stands with, okay, and all right. We stand together against hatred, and while keeping the political motivations of some out of the discussion. Those who have spoken with us have indicated a range of political views, and we've been impressed by the collective intentions of our students to stand with a singular purpose, regardless of their personal ideologies. We thus have an opportunity to have our students model effective communication, civic and civil responsibility, respect for others, the acceptance of disparate points of view, and the articulation of thoughts and ideas, all of which are part of our core value. As we are planning a regular day of school, we will be permitting students who wish to participate to sign up in advance, and those who do not wish to participate will stay in class during that period where teachers can continue with the normal instruction. Those who choose to participate but do so inappropriately in any other way as to disrupt the planned activity or who attempt to subvert the intentions of the organized effort and event will face consequences in accordance with the student handbook. Students who do not sign up in advance but leave classes without permission will also face consequences. Finally, we will work with the Uxbridge Police Department to secure the driveway leading up to the school. Visitors will be directed here and there. We're impressed so far with the altruism and optimism with which our students are approaching the event, and we hope for a civic discourse with our students. We are confident it will connect the students to a world much bigger than their own high school while focusing on our collective responsibility to the community in which we live. We appreciate the community. Bum, bum, bum. Sincerely, Michael Rubin, the principal over at Uxbridge High. What do you think about that? I don't know how I think about that. I think a few things about that, actually. Do I support their right to protest? Yeah, I do, to be honest with you. I fully support their right to protest. I don't think that they really need permission, to be quite honest with you. How do you like that? I mean, there may be consequences. Okay, so there's consequences. But there's always consequences. If I want to go protest something in Boston and blow off work, I'm going to be marked absent. I'm going to have to deal with that. But that's what I got to do. If that's what I want to do, then that's what I got to do. Like I said, we don't have to agree for people to be able to protest. But I'm not sure why this, would be nationally billed as a protest, as they don't seem to be protesting anything. And I'm not trying to minimize it. I think it's great that they want to have, get involved, have a voice. It's tough sometimes. We've seen all the memes on Facebook, you want to have a voice in gun control, but last week you were eating Tide Pods. Well, that's true, and that's our perception of the younger people sometimes. Not fair to lump everybody all in together. But should a student be able to wear a shirt with the word gun and then a line through it on that day? Is that okay? I don't think it is. And if they could someone else bring an NRA t-shirt? Is that okay, or isn't it not? It says that they want to have discourse. Doesn't say that they want to have verbiage. It says they want to, they want to have a discussion about it. They want to support, I guess is the thing, that coming together. Coming together isn't going to solve the problem, unfortunately. I don't know what your thoughts are. I'm not going to stand in the way, not that I could, but I'm not going to stand in the way of protesting, but I don't know exactly what they want to accomplish here. I just don't know what they want to accomplish. If it's anti-gun, for example, then how don't they allow pro-gun sides to also voice their opinions? It doesn't seem to be. I don't know what you think. Here in Northbridge, where is this one? Here in Northbridge, I so far have not seen any organized efforts to do this on the 14th. That doesn't mean it's not going to happen. I did reach out and was able to speak to a couple of students about this from Northbridge. They have no real information on anything as organized as what's happening in Uxbridge. Is it again, like I was asking them, is this a national moment to pray together, or to what is the desired outcome when you go out and then you're going to come back in? What has been accomplished? That we all stand together? Okay, I get it. I stand together too. I'm disgusted by what's going on. I just don't know what it's going to do. I have always thought in my mind that when you want to have a protest, if you bill it as a protest, you should say, I don't like this and I want it to be this. So they don't like that the schools are getting shot up. None of us do. None of us do. And we have to find a way to stop it. I would love to have that discussion as to what they think. And I'm working on getting enough kids in here to come in and actually talk about it in a round table where we actually have that discourse and have some discussions about what is it that they think would help, because I think that their opinions are very valid. But I don't think they're going to be allowed to have opinions at this thing. And something tells me that if they were allowed to have opinions, I'll editorialize, that they wouldn't be allowed to have pro-gun opinions. Something's just sitting on my shoulder telling me that I don't think that they would be allowed to come and say, I support the Second Amendment. I think they would take that as harsh or offensive to people. Constitution's offensive. It's 2018. Man, we're losing it fast. It's just interesting. I want to know what your thoughts are. I just want to know what your thoughts are on it. Northbridge sent out a letter February 25th. Dear families, as we return to school Monday, please know that school safety is very much a focus of our attention at this time. I have included information from notes from each school in order to provide a district-wide perspective for you. We developed a plan utilizing the ALICE protocol in 2014. For each school, staff members were trained. Each classroom has a go bag to assist in an emergency. At the elementary school, we routinely practice enhanced lockdown drills with the students. At the middle school and the high school, we have already started to plan for drills with students this spring. Over the course of the past few years, we have continued to add cameras and review our procedures as we anticipate additional funds for capital expenses. We have already planned to add additional cameras, additional key boxes, some new locks and some doors, upgrades to intercom systems, and purchasing more walkie-talkies for teacher use. It goes on to say administrators will also be reviewing emergency plans with staff and students in close collaboration with the Northbridge Police Department. We'll develop a plan for organized age-appropriate activities for students and staff on March 14th, 2018. So they're going to develop a plan for them, but nobody seems to know what that plan or what these activities. See, now they say activities, so they're using some different words there. As always, we'll be vigilant to ensure doors are locked, visitors are checked in. We request all visitors, with a badge, and on they go. And then they go on and they literally just tell you, every school exactly what they're doing. I think that's a pretty well thought out email, to be quite honest with you, that the Northbridge schools sent out. It doesn't really talk much about gun control or any of that kind of stuff. It's pretty uppity on the level, and I like that. Now they're also going to let us know about what's going to happen on the 14th. It's getting closer and closer. I'd like to know already. Let me jump on the phone lines here. Okay. Good evening. Do we have you on the Freedom Network?
Hi, Mr. Rosenberg. It's Michael.
Hey, Michael. How you doing?
Good, how are you?
Good, 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 good. Now we can get the perspective of someone that's a lot younger than me. Go ahead, buddy.
I just wanted to address a few things really quickly.
Mm-hmm.
So I am a conservative, and I do believe that people have the right to own and use weapons. I myself go to shooting ranges, and I know how dangerous a gun can be.
Okay.
And really the whole point of the walkout is just to tell politicians that we're not going to put up with it anymore and that we are the future. And really, if they want our vote, they need to listen to us, because I believe over 70% of Americans want stricter gun laws, and it's not being done. And really, there's no need for anyone to own an AR-15, we feel. And the number one priority of the government is to keep the people safe, but they really can't do that when they have weapons of war out on the street. And that's how my personal opinion about it.
Sure.
And I know many other students agree with that.
So, let me ask you a question, because I can dig in a little with you. I know you, so I can dig in a little bit with you. When you say that they shouldn't own AR-15s, right?
Mm-hmm.
Let me ask you this question. Let's say that you ban the AR-15, okay? Let's say that you're successful and you get it banned, and now it's gone. First of all, you got to understand that that clip that fits into that very scary looking gun also fits into a very nice looking rifle that's made out of wood. So do you ban that gun as well? And if you do ban that gun, do you think that's going to stop people? And how many people have used the AR-15, first of all, but is that going to stop people? My concern, right, Michael, is where does it stop? Because then they're going to come to the school with shotguns, and you're going to want to ban those. Then they're going to come with handguns, you're going to want to ban those, and then they're all gone. So help me understand. I just want to understand, where's your line in the sand? And I know you understand why the Second Amendment was written. So where's your line in the sand, and why do you draw it where you draw it?
So I feel that we should ban semi-automatic weapons because, well, they're the weapon of choice, really. And I feel that we can stop at semi-automatic weapons. But I feel we need to take other steps. I know someone earlier was talking about mental illness, and I really do feel that needs to be addressed.
Mm-hmm.
I also feel that if you have committed any crime, you should not have the right to own a gun. And I think that we need armed security guards on the campuses of these schools to prevent a shooter from coming in and basically being allowed to just shoot up the schools. I would say, though, that we should not be banning pistols, shotguns, or rifles, because those are used for other things like hunting. And it's much easier to shoot up a school when you have 25 bullets that can be shot out in seconds than having to reload a pistol every time you want to shoot it, in my personal opinion.
No, your opinion is, our opinions are very valid to ourselves and usually to half the people that you tell them to. So that's okay. You get used to that. Half the people will love what you say, half the people won't. That's okay. But if I have a handgun, all right, like let's say a standard police issue type of a handgun, right, which most people can get their hands on guns like that. I would argue that those are semi-automatic because, I just can keep pulling the trigger and I can keep on firing. I can even continue to keep pulling the trigger on a revolver and keep on firing. The thing is that with the revolver, to your point, it's going to take a lot longer to reload. But if I have that handgun, I can drop a clip out and put a clip right back in so fast and keep on firing. To be honest with you, I don't know that it stops any of it. My other concern is that all these things would do is they would prevent some loss of life, but the person shot with the first bullet still needs to be protected, right? And what you touched on, I think, to me, is really that root cause, is the reality that the people are going crazy more today than they ever have before, and we need to figure out why. So what do you think about is Northbridge is going to do anything on the 14th?
So I have heard that there is going to be a walkout on the 14th, but I do have a few questions very quickly to address.
Yeah, go ahead. Fire them at me, man.
So I feel personally that we should be limiting the size of these magazines, because I know you were saying you can just hold down the trigger, and obviously with less bullets in a magazine, you can do less damage. And my other question is why is it that we have a ban on fully automatic guns if you can use those the same way as you can use a revolver?
It's interesting you bring that up. I was talking to a very learned person, ex-military law enforcement person that's close to me, and he actually said that he would rather not have a machine gun because it's very difficult to control, not accurate, if he was looking to do the most damage, he would not even want a machine gun, to be quite honest with you, unless he was in a war situation where he was just spraying. But if he's going into a situation like that, he would not like to have one. Size of clips. Size of clips, Michael, they become a little bit irrelevant when they're so easy to change. So if you say you can only have 10, and someone says they should have 15, and someone says they should have 12, well, if I bring 10 with me in a knapsack, does it matter? I mean, it would matter if there was someone else armed there, because as I was reloading, you could shoot me. But we don't allow that to happen in the schools. Now, your point about the armed guards in the schools, I fully support that 100%. I just don't know why. I don't know why, again, that first round that comes out of the gun is, that kid's just as important as the last one. So why do we want to go after the capacity, is what they would call these things, or the, why are machine guns illegal? They're illegal for the same reason that most any gun law is made, because people get afraid and they want to react, and they, with good intentions, ban things. I would say people in your age group are far greater risk to die texting while driving, okay, and you'll be driving, right? More people die texting while driving, but I don't see the schools emptying out at 10 o'clock in the morning to protest that we should be, taking these things and banning them from you guys. Should we ban phones from you guys? Because they kill a lot more people than guns do, especially your age.
And that's a very good point you bring up. But I'd just like to address one more thing, and then I have to get going.
Yeah, you go ahead.
It's when you mentioned earlier, you have 10 clips, so what's the difference? Every single time you drop the clip to reload, there's a chance that someone could stop the shooter. And that's how I look at it. It's just, I feel if we had armed security guards, they were rushing towards the shooter every single time he was dropping the clip, it would be a few more seconds that the security guards would be able to get to him and possibly kill him.
I won't argue that point, because I think that's not a point to really be argued. You'd be right there. I mean, yeah, there are people that are good that can do it in seconds, but the fact of the matter is that, yeah, you probably could overtake or overpower. Maybe a jam, something could happen, something could go wrong. We can agree there, I think. We can agree there, but doesn't mean that I'd agree to go along and ban them, but I think that your end result's probably sound. I'm just not into banning so many things. Listen, I know you got to go, but I want to thank you very much.
Thank you
for having I want you to, you got the guts, you got the courage, you're able to speak articulately, and you have some fine ideas, and in my opinion, maybe I don't agree with all your ideas, but they're valuable because you're part of the conversation, and you're also willing to listen. And knowing what you know about constitutionality and that kind of stuff, I know that this is probably a very hard position for you to take. So I'd love to talk to you more about it when you have more time and really dig in, all right?
Okay, thank you very much, Mr. Rosenberg. Have a good night.
Absolutely, bud. Great kid. Great kid. That's got, all right, so what? You don't have to always agree. I say this all the time. And this is what is lacking in America. If this was a conversation on Facebook between two adults, this would have degraded to, F-bombs and screw you and your mother's ugly and all that other crap, right? But here we can take a young fella that's again, articulate, opinionated. We can talk. We can disagree. We can be civil. We can agree on a few things. And I think if we were able to talk, I bet you the two of us could come out to a plan that he wouldn't like all of and I wouldn't like all of, but we could all live with it. Why can't this country just do that? Why can't we just do that? I mean, I don't know. You could go on and on and on making laws, but no law deters crazy. It just doesn't deter crazy. So that may well be the root cause. It very well may be crazy. So let's face it. We just talked about this, right? It doesn't happen in the past like it happens today. Something changed. Kids didn't go into schools and shoot people with muskets, as I said. So, we've talked about chemicals in food. We've talked about all the vaccines that are given to kids. We've talked about the chemicals, and thinking that they don't have any effect, I think, is kind of denial, folks. I think you're getting to a place where you're kind of in denial, for many reasons, one being the clear agenda of anti-gun zealots, all right? Let's look back when the illegal alien shot and killed somebody. You all remember that. Where were the gun protests? Where were the walkouts? I didn't hear a peep about guns. Not a peep. I don't know where the anti-gun people were. Where was the Democrat Party? Where were some of those Republicans? They didn't say a word. I'm sorry, you just can't deny that there is a move to remove all guns. Now, Michael talked about something very telling that people say all the time. You know, I'm not opposed to handguns and all that stuff because people go and they use them and they hunt with them. But the Second Amendment has nothing to do with hunting. Nothing to do with it. Not even a bit, not even a morsel, not even a little bit of texture to it. I just don't, and that's what I was trying to talk to him about. What are you going to do when they use the other rifle? And then you're going to ban that. And what are you going to do when they use a shotgun? You ban that. And then you ban the handgun, because the handgun is now the only thing left, and that's what they're using if they want to use a firearm. Ban that. You know, to me, that in and of itself is a little bit insane, because so many people are becoming pawns in a very, very dangerous game. It doesn't, you know, not only does it have serious constitutional issues, all right, but also, and this is important, has the reality that it's not going to work. You know what I mean? It's not going to work. So more kids and others are going to be murdered because that plan, as much as I know it feels right, it's not going to work. It's not. Let's say there were no guns in this society, but yet everything else stayed the same. Just remove all the guns. Do you not think that that kid is going to get in a car and drive it through a bus stop? It's been done. I mean, we've seen things like this happening around the world. Where do they happen a lot of? Where they can't get guns, but they still do these things. That's just my feeling. You know, that's my gut. I don't think it works. I don't think it fixes the problem. And what I do think it does is it then infringes on those rights. Now, when people say why, you know, again, I got to get some tickets to something. I got to call my buddy. There was recently, in the past, I'll say just 18 months, or maybe 24 months, maybe you can help me out with that, there was a point where the U.S. government had a standoff, an armed standoff. Do you remember that? I mean, end of the day, they won. They did win. And they had a lot of AR-15s out there. AR does not mean assault rifle. It doesn't mean it. It doesn't mean automatic rifle. It does not mean that. Google it, please. We can't give you all the answers. And now the president's flip-flopping, I think, on the gun issue. He's saying some odd things. Take firearms first and then go to court. His quote, I get that while he probably means, which is to remove the guns and then allow due process to go through, that only works if you have due cause to do so, and some part of due process needs to happen before you eliminate somebody's rights. So it gets a little complex, but you cannot just take someone's guns without due cause and then process. They have to kind of come together. So now process can be that they had due cause to take the gun based on whatever, and then due process must happen on its own. So Trump indicated that we can take the guns from people with mental illnesses and then let them go to court if they think law enforcement made a mistake. That's not how it works. That's not the system that we have set up, Donald. That's anti the system that we have set up. Who's going to define crazy? This gets a little bit tough now. How do you define crazy? This kid was absolutely crazy, right? We had all the indications that he was crazy. Nobody wants guns in the hands of crazy people. Nobody. Not one person does. In fact, that's what the entire issue is. So the gut reaction is to take them from crazy people, and I would agree totally. Yeah, take them from crazy people. You know, I would agree with that. But you cannot bend the rights of people, that's where I get nervous. So what is the definition of crazy? Tim of timorgary@gmail.com fame is very concerned, I know, about who defines crazy. Well, this kid, Tim, was crazy, right? We know he was crazy. So that's a touchdown, slam dunk. But don't forget that the FBI investigated this kid. You know, local law enforcement was at his house dozens and dozens of times. Every kid, which I found very telling, knew who the shooter was in the interviews afterwards. So what does that mean? It means, again, we fail to connect the dots. We fail to connect the dots. Can we get Trump? Give me Trump. Give me Trump. Hang on. I want to hear this. Give me Trump.
And Mr. President, the Vice President's state of Indiana has done a good job.
Yes, go ahead, Mike.
Yeah.
Well, in the category, you've spoken about it, Mr. President, gun violence restraining orders.
They're called, California actually has a version of this, and I think in your meeting with governors earlier this week, individually and as a group, we spoke about states taking steps, but the focus is to literally give families and give local law enforcement additional tools if an individual is reported to be a potential danger to themselves or others. Allow due process so that no one's rights are trampled, but the ability to go to court, obtain an order, and then collect not only the firearms, but any weapons in the possession
Or
of that
might
individual.
take the firearms first and then go to court, because that's another system, because a lot of times by the time you go to court, it takes so long to go to court to get the due process procedures. I like taking the guns early, like in this crazy man's case that just took place in Florida. He had a lot of firearms, they saw everything. To go to court would have taken a long time. So you could do exactly what you're saying, but take the guns first, go through due process second.
We think about the tragedy in Sandy Hook and
That's right.
Adam Lanza's mother, who spoke to law enforcement, spoke to local officials. She was concerned over and over again. I know our colleague from Connecticut lived this and saw it, but to literally give families and tools, law enforcement, as my state has done, as other states have done, to be able to take action to remove those weapons for either a set period of time or longer to make sure that person can't be a threat.
I like that. Mark?
You know, I just don't know if they get how it works. That's not how it works. You can go today and you can do kind of what they want to do. They don't need a law for that. There already are laws. You can take guns from people that are displaying criminally insane activity. Absolutely you can. If people are nuts, there's a process for that. You don't have to pass any more laws. We don't need any more laws. Laws are just not going to make the grade. I got an email coming in here. Dan says, Gary, look at how many of the shooters grew up without fathers, broken homes. Also, it's the Bundy standoff in 2014, April, May. Well done. Well done. Yes. I mean, they backed off the government. They backed off the government. Yeah, I mean, bring up some great points there, Dan. It's, you know, laws already exist, all right? They just exist. And they help law enforcement take arms from crazy people. We don't need another law. Let me say it again. We don't need another law to take guns away from crazy people. We need the FBI and the local law enforcement to just do their damn jobs. If you could pile 10 more laws on, but nobody's going to enforce the law, I guess. And this is an extreme case that obviously the police or the FBI or the school could have had an impact on his ability to buy and own guns. They did not do anything. Knee-jerk statement from Trump is all that was. It's a soundbite. Just the sound of it. Take the guns first. Go through due process second. I don't like the sound of it. You know, man, I mean, he is like two different people, campaign trail Trump and President Trump. Campaign trail Trump says what you want to hear if you want to get the votes to get the nomination. And President Trump, he's looking at re-election. He's actually thinking in his mind he's going to get some of these Democrats to vote for him this time. He must be. He's got to be. Due cause, I don't know. To take guns already exists. And then they go to court. It sounds great to socialists, I'm sure. Take the guns from crazy people. Yes, that would have happened right in this situation. Trump should have just lambasted the FBI and the police, who failed very much here. That's what he should be doing. No need for any new laws when we don't enforce the ones that we have, folks. Trump, you know, I'll be out of here in a minute, guys. Trump also supports raising the age from 18 to 21 to buy a rifle. Really? So at 21, someone won't still be crazy, I guess. I don't know. He supports banning bump stocks. That's another reversal. Obama looked at banning bump stocks. Do you know that? But Obama determined that it was going to be unlawful to ban them. But Trump is going to move forward. Oh, yes, he is. Oh, yes, he is. Did Obama make any gun laws? I don't know if he passed one gun law. And now Donald Trump's going to be the gun law king. I can't keep track of all his total flops. It's unreal. The left was not so blinded by hate because they're instructed to hate him. They would love the moves that he's been making. They'd love him. Paul's going to come on here and tell you how no longer do you need bump stocks and due process schmocess. Who cares? He'll be on in 5 minutes to tell you that. You know, we spend a lot of money in this country. Let's fund it. Let's make the children safe and make the teachers safe. Teachers are also part of this equation, folks. Let's keep the teachers safe. Have armed guards seems logical to me. I'd like to, you know, I don't know. I'd like to see some common sense things happen. All right? All the gun laws we have, we couldn't prevent these shootings. Why do we even have any of the laws then? Fix crazy, because that's what I think it's going to be. Talk about antidepressants. Talk about drugs from doctors. Every kid's on something, and we are wondering why people are going crazy. Some kids are saved and so wonderful with the drugs that they have, but I think that the prescription book is pretty big. Enforce the laws we have. Folks, that's all the time I got. I got to run. We'll continue the conversation. We'll get Richard in. We'll spread some guns out here as soon as possible. We'll get the guns right out here, and I guarantee you, not one of them is going to kill anybody on its own. My name's Gary. This is the Freedom Network. I'll see you next Wednesday.
Oh, say